Today, we're going to be talking about how Dan Bilzerian's career is officially over after this happened. Make sure you stay till number 1 so you don't miss out on some major controversy surrounding Dan Bilzerian. You'll be absolutely shocked.
I just take pictures and the women are there, so I don't know. I mean, it's all up to interpretation. I mean, people can.
What is your interpretation?
The King of Instagram. Dan Bilzerian is known as the King of Instagram. This is not just because of the fact he has millions of followers. This poker-playing entrepreneur is known to live an extravagant life. Just take a look at his Instagram page. You'll see beautiful models, luxurious getaways, expensive alcohol, and just an overall rich lifestyle. He's well known, but not just for the good stuff. All that luxury hides a darker life lurking behind closed doors. Dan Bilzerian is the founder of the company known as Ignite. This company specializes in CBD oils and is branded as a premium lifestyle brand. Although the premise sounds nice, they were under fire for fraud claims. The company lost $50 million in 2019 alone. This happened after Dan Bilzerian ended up spending the company's money on things like yacht rentals and large and expensive parties. So just how did this multi-millionaire's life come crashing down? Stay tuned to find out how it happened. Before Ignite, Dan Bilzerian is the son of famous fraudster Paul Bilzerian. Paul was behind bars for 13 months after numerous convictions, all involving fraud. Paul was also a wealthy man and left Dan and his brother with trust funds. These trust funds obviously became a major factor in Dan's extravagant life. Dan doesn't talk about it, but it's obvious he uses trust fund money to build himself a life of luxury. How else would he afford to do what he does? Dan's career wasn't always just partying. He was once in the military after he got kicked out of school for bringing a gun. He later became a poker player. He claimed to make upwards of $50 million playing poker. Yet, when asked about where his money comes from and how much he's earned from playing poker, he seems to avoid the question. He was obviously from a wealthy family, and that is what helped him to live a life of ease. This early exposure to fraudulent wealth had shaped the way Dan Bilzerian turned out, from the way he spends his money to the way he runs a company. His role model growing up may not have been the best for him. Who was Paul Bilzerian? Dan Bilzerian's father. We will be talking about Paul Bilzerian and how he's part of Dan Bilzerian's downfall, but first, who was he? We know he was the father of Dan Bilzerian, but what else? Paul was a businessman and corporate takeover specialist. Paul was highly wealthy, although a lot of the money he made was fraudulent. In the 1980s, he was sentenced to 13 months in prison after failing to make complete and timely disclosures on filings related to 3 unsuccessful takeover attempts. He was eventually bankrupt after he was ordered to disgorge his profits. While he committed these crimes, he has stated for the past 30+ years that he's innocent. He had another case where he was accused of stock parking. Paul had made many false claims throughout his career, and if you compare what he did to what Dan Bilzerian did, you can see some similarities. Dan makes false claims and has committed fraud. Dan claims that he only talks to his father maybe 4 to 5 times a year, but this may be another false claim. People believe this is false because Paul Bilzerian may be involved in Dan Bilzerian's company Ignite. More on that later. With all these hidden facts, how can anyone trust either Paul or Dan Bilzerian? Dan Bilzerian's company Ignite and the fraud that came with it. Ignite is a company founded by Bilzerian himself. They specialize in CBD oils, but also sell water bottles, vodka, electronic cigarettes, and even clothing. The company calls itself a lifestyle brand and attempts to be luxurious, just how Dan Bilzerian envisions it. This luxury didn't last long. In 2019, 2 years after the company was founded, they reported a loss of $50 million. That is when everything started falling apart. The public questioned how they could lose so much money, and then claims started releases showing the expenses that went down. Parties that cost millions of dollars, personal trips that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, unnecessary photo shoots that cost thousands of dollars. All of this was obviously led by Bilzerian himself, as it reflected his own personal lifestyle. An anonymous employee claimed that Bilzerian would stamp the Ignite logo on anything just so he could use the company's money to pay for it. These growing expenses became too big to avoid, and Dan came under fire over it all. He fired a vice president over a petty issue. At first, the reason for him being fired was not stated publicly, but he gave a statement eventually, claiming that Dan was upset that he didn't approve of a budget, including unnecessary expenses. Some of these expenses included a $15,000 ping pong table, a $40,000 rock climbing wall, and a $130,000 trip to the Bahamas. It became a huge issue once Dan started hiding all these company expenses. Another issue that was claimed was that Dan was a puppet for his father Paul Bilzerian. Paul was no longer allowed to run public companies due to his convictions, yet he is reported to have attended Ignite meetings and made big decisions for the company. This is not too good, especially when you remember that he's good at fraud. The company's leadership issues were at its low point. They were falling apart. The glamorization of Dan Bilzerian was finally over. Lawsuit and public distrust. After being fired, the former vice president of Ignite filed a lawsuit due to the unjust manner of his departure. The lawsuit explained all the fraudulent expenses the company had. Bilzerian had photos of models, guns, stacks of money, and other items with the Ignite logo, showing off the amount of company money he spent. The public no longer saw him as some magically rich, inspirational figure. Now, they saw him as a sneaky and lying fraudster, like his father. The public view of Dan Bilzerian had soured almost overnight, as public reports of his company's expenses were released and employees came out with their own bad stories of Ignite. This was the beginning of the end. There was no longer any trust in Bilzerian. After a while, Dan had a few things to say about the issue. One thing was a tweet where he tweeted about how Uber has always lost money every month since its founding. To compare Ignite's issue with Uber's is unfair. Ignite wrongfully spent money that was meant to grow the company. This tweet upset some people, as expected. One user replied to the tweet saying that he didn't think spending $200,000 a month on a mansion using company money was smart. Dan was upset and told him that while $200,000 may seem like a big amount for a peasant like him, he is able to spend millions. Very classy, Dan. The end of Ignite. One odd thing some people have noticed is the Ignite stocks are placed in the Canadian stock market. This is most likely due to the fact that Paul Bilzerian is behind some of the operations, yet is no longer allowed to run public companies in the United States. Speaking of stocks, Ignite stocks have dropped about 70% since the news of the fraudulent expenses came out. Many see this as the end of the company as a whole. Some believe it is only a matter of time before Ignite declares bankruptcy. They have no more cash, as they have spent it all on unnecessary things and trips. What started as a decent business idea turned into a mess of lies and luxury, all because Dan Bilzerian couldn't keep his hedonistic lifestyle out of the business. Ignite could have done well, but they lost a lot. CanMart was a major distributor for Ignite, but they have since cut ties with the company after the claims and statements were made public. CanMart was planning on making Ignite big in Canada, which would have definitely boosted sales and helped keep Ignite in the limelight, but they lost that as well. Downfall of Dan Bilzerian. Dan Bilzerian started out as a famous poker player. He had quite a big following. His millions of followers on Instagram proved that he was someone worth paying attention to. He was up high in the sky, but following in his father's footsteps dragged him down. He not only let his fans down, but he let his entire company down. Dan Bilzerian was a rich kid that proved he didn't know what to do with all of his money. He used it to build something big, but tore it down by spending too much on unnecessary things. Just like his father Paul Bilzerian, Dan Bilzerian became nothing more than a fraudster with too much money in his hands, and that led to the loss of it all. While you're here, go ahead and click on one of these videos on your screen. See you there!